Welcome to the Reconnection Club podcast, the show that helps parents heal troubled relationships with their adult sons and daughters. I'm your host, psychotherapist Tina Gilbertson. Each week, I'll offer you compassion, clarity, and personal development tips designed to help you reconnect, not only with your child, but with yourself. Now let's get started. Before you became unfortunately acquainted with estrangement, you might have been aware of another term that's been part of our culture for a long time, the silent treatment. That's when two people, let's call them A and B, have a disagreement, or person A does or says something that bothers person B, and in response, person B stops talking to person A for a period of time. During the silent treatment, person A feels punished and suffers the pain of emotional cutoff from person B. If that sounds familiar, it's because estrangement from your adult child can evoke the same feelings on the receiving end. But, unlike the silent treatment, which both parties understand from the outset will be temporary, estrangement feels open-ended. There's no inherent promise of a return to the relationship, and so there might also be tremendous fear and deep despair. The silent treatment often occurs between people who live together, and it's hard to keep it up for very long at close range like that, so there's less perceived risk to the relationship than if they lived apart or were not in a committed relationship. That relative sense of security that this punishment will be temporary is just one difference between an estranged relationship and one in which the silent treatment is being applied. Although most estrangements, according to research, are temporary, the people involved don't know that until reconciliation starts to happen. I wrote a post listing 8 important differences between the silent treatment and estrangement, and I'm not going to go through all 8 in this episode. So if you're interested, you can find that article at reconnectionclub.com/silent, S-I-L-E-N-T. One of the more important differences to understand has to do with purpose. The purpose of the silent treatment, from the point of view of the person who's doing it, is to punish. There's something the other person did that they're supposed to do penance for. Once they've suffered enough, according to the person who's doing it, the treatment comes to a natural end. This is not the same in estrangement. The primary purpose of estrangement is to remove oneself from a situation that feels untenable for some reason. It's not done on purpose as a punishment. That's why, for many parents, the punishment doesn't seem to fit the crime. Estrangement isn't meant to be a punishment. For more on this idea, listen to episode 157, Is It Proportional?, at reconnectionclub.com/157. I think the most critical difference for practical purposes between estrangement and the silent treatment is in your response options. How you respond to estrangement has to be different from how you would respond to the silent treatment because the reason for estrangement is different. Let's look first at the silent treatment. If you're getting the silent treatment from someone with whom you're in a committed relationship, that mutual commitment gives you a range of options. The most passive response might be to ride it out, knowing it will come to an end. Or you could apologize profusely, which might speed up the process and bring communication back sooner. Or you could refuse to accept the silent treatment and insist that they talk to you in the name of healthy communication and resolving things properly. You could give them the silent treatment right back until one of you breaks. All of those are options if both people are committed to staying in the relationship. And that is where estrangement is fundamentally different from the silent treatment. The mutual commitment to the relationship is not a given. In fact, the person choosing estrangement is saying, I am not committed to staying connected in this relationship. So an effective response can't rely on their commitment. None of the possible responses to the silent treatment are likely to bring estrangement swiftly to an end. Apologies are sometimes very much appreciated by estranged adult children, but approximately 100% of the time, they're looking for some sort of change in the relationship. The best way to bring an end to estrangement, both in my clinical experience and from the research, is to understand and address why the person became estranged or allowed themselves to be kept apart from their parent or parents. If you see your adult child's estrangement as a punishment for crimes you did or did not commit, you will continue to respond as if you're receiving the silent treatment. You'll feel the feelings of a rejected, punished person. You may come to resent your child for their silence, or even beg for communication. Eventually, you might go silent in return, giving it back to them. All of those responses are understandable human reactions to what feels like the silent treatment. But they are not appropriate for estrangement because of one more difference, and that is focus. In the silent treatment, the focus is on the person receiving the treatment. It says, you did something and now you are being punished. But in estrangement, the focus is and must be on the person choosing distance. Estrangement says, I can no longer engage in this relationship for some reason. Regardless of the emotional impact on anyone else, I have been suffering for some time, and the only way I can think of to end that is to remove myself. Or, I have competing loyalties that I don't know how to manage, and so I feel forced to choose between people I love. Make sure if you're estranged from your adult child or children that you don't confuse the focus of their estrangement. It is and must be on them. Once you begin responding to estrangement as estrangement rather than the silent treatment, you have every chance of helping to shift things in a good direction. In most cases, it will take time, because unlike the silent treatment, which can be kicked off by one wrong move, estrangement doesn't come out of nowhere, even if it seems to happen out of the blue, after a single event or with a new relationship. Estrangement often has a long fuse that's invisible to parents until it ignites. But once you see and understand the roots of estrangement from your child's point of view, you have an ability that you didn't have before when you were unaware. You can now begin to choose behaviors that balance out any troublesome dynamics from your side that may have contributed to their need for distance. Or, if the shoe fits, you can simply honor your newly launched adult child's developmental need for more psychological space. You'll always have special status as their parent, and your genuine efforts to respond with empathy and diligence to any trouble spots between you have the best possible chance of making a positive impact over time. In summary, estrangement has confusing similarities to the silent treatment. In particular, it may evoke the same excruciating feelings of abandonment and rejection. But the purpose and focus of estrangement are very different, and so your response to estrangement must also be different if you want to see results. As always, knowledge is power. As a next step, you might want to familiarize yourself with those 8 differences I wrote about in my article on this topic at reconnectionclub.com/silent. And of course, the resource library inside the Reconnection Club website is available around the clock to help you keep your energy focused where it can have the greatest impact. Until next time, remember that you are a loving, lovable, and still growing human being, so please take good care of yourself. Bye for now. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Reconnection Club podcast, I invite you to check out reconnectionclub.com. The Reconnection Club is for parents at any stage of estrangement from their adult, child, or children. So whether you've just realized there's trouble between you, you've been living with estrangement for years, or you're newly reconciled but still walking on eggshells, the Reconnection Club is your essential resource for information, support, and continued personal growth. With our courses and workshops, expert interviews, monthly Q&A calls, and a friendly, active community, the Reconnection Club is a wonderful place to be for anyone suffering the pain of estrangement from an adult, child, or children. So check it out at reconnectionclub.com.